Danny, you've been sort of fired up about the trucker guys. I've seen.
I have been fired up.
You've been sort of posting online.
I have.
They got you going.
Well, the thing that got me going the most about the trucker thing was, and this is mostly, it is so interesting how different social medias are, like the platforms or whatever. My Facebook is literally half my friends calling the other half of my friends white supremacists.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even exaggerating. It's like 50% of them are like, these people are white, you're all white supremacists, and the other 50% are like, we just like want to not like be locked down anymore because like,
yeah.
nowhere else in the fucking world is. Like again, it's like you're in Ontario, you look and it's like say you're in Kingston and you're just like, okay, on the other side of this imaginary fucking line, pure freedom. And over here, it's like everything is closed. Like, how is the virus that different? Now, again, I understand that there are like differences in terms of like the hospitals and stuff, whatever. But like, yeah, it's just they're all, and I'm just like, none of you are white supremacists. This is a ridiculous argument. And yeah, I don't know. It's just it was getting fucking insane, and just like all the just terrible. Just everybody was like, I don't like the trucker protest, therefore everybody involves a fucking Nazi, and then the Terry Fox shit and
the Terry Fox was
dude,
insane.
everything. Everybody's like, oh my God, they defaced Terry Fox because they put a Canadian flag on him. You're like,
right.
And again, it's like you take 2 minutes and then you see all the other times that it's been defaced.
Yeah, but it wasn't like they
defaced.
Put a flag on him.
Dude, they put a Canadian flag around his fucking like as like a
yeah. I mean, I feel like we call it fairly as it is, where it was like it's they really are at a peak of being exposed, because it's like, I think these people that are sort of, telling everyone what to do, they've lost control of like with the public, kind of will.
Yeah.
They've lost control of no one believes them anymore. And then on top of that, they did so much lying to, cover up things that they wanted.
Yeah.
That now it's like, not only are they lying, but they're like lying while being these huge hypocrites, where you go, here's 9 articles where you said that, tearing down actual statues is great.
It's like, that was another thing. I'm like, oh, you guys care about statues all of a sudden?
It's just so funny.
Like, there was like a photo of some like dude for Pride, and he had like a gay fucking flag on Terry Fox, and you're like, okay, so that was fine.
Exactly.
That wasn't defacing it.
So with the internet is real. The thing is, I think before the internet, the news could probably get away with, I mean, they weren't as crazy without the internet, but they could get away with a little more wildness. Whereas right now, there's so many receipts.
Oh,
people are just,
and they're so like, it doesn't even take much to find them.
It doesn't.
Like, not at all. And that's another thing too. It's like with the trucker thing, it's like, it's not even like, this is like a news thing or like an authority thing where it's like, it's just people do hold these positions. Like the amount of people I see who are like, oh my God, like all the traffic laws they're violating. Like, this is like where they're at. They go like, oh my God, the honking.
Yeah.
And like, there's so much honking and they're not obeying the traffic laws and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, this is where you're at, like with all the protests that have been going on. They're like, they didn't have a permit, and you're like, so that's your baseline now. It's like you have to
just admit that you disagree with them, no matter what.
Exactly, just be like, look, I don't agree with this protest.
You go, I like protests when I like it, and I'm against protests when I don't. You don't have to pretend that,
like you don't have to be like, oh, this protest is wrong, my protests are right, and then you nitpick like the tiniest thing. Just be like, look, look. Another thing too is like with Canada, they just had a federal election like 4 months ago. They voted for Trudeau. He won. Okay. So he didn't win with a majority, but like, look, they had an election. Like the way if you don't like these policies, you vote these people out. They had an election and he won. So it's like, it's not like this is like a tiny fringe minority that opposes these mandates. Like a lot of people are fine with that.
And if it is about the original thing is about the trucker vaccine stuff, but for most people that I talk to, and even
it's not. It's just the mandate. It's just become a different thing.
Well, it's just become like, this is our protest against all of it.
Yeah.
Just the same way that like the cop ones were like, it was a protest against all. And
it's like the Forrest Gump thing. Remember, he started running, and then a couple people started running with him, and by the end of it, they had a whole new thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the running. It was,
also, if you think about it, you're like, if you think about all like the American protests and stuff, they did get like cities to be like, we don't have cops anymore.
Yeah, you were like, we're defunding the police.
They did actually, where they go, all those protests did go, literal cities go, we're going to basically not have cops anymore.
Yeah.
They tried that. So I don't think it's that crazy for them to say that if that could, I mean, obviously these ones are, the media is going to spin it the other way because it's not part of the establishment narrative or whatever.
Sure.
But it's not that crazy for it to be like, hey, every trucker's there and the public will is like kind of on their side. It's not that crazy to be like, you know what, maybe let's not push more lockdowns the way we maybe were planning on it. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So
and
it might actually.
Yeah, and like people are kind of getting fed up with it. And like,
dude, everyone I know that isn't, everyone I know that has nothing to do with this, they're, even if you're like the most like liberal, I don't support any of this stuff, their take is generally, even their take will be like, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's good that the truckers are blocking off the city and all that stuff sucks or whatever, but like,
I mean, people are calling
agree
it like
that it shouldn't be locked down.
People are literally calling it like a siege and shit. They're like, yeah, like Ottawa's like under siege. And like, I mean, I think the most like kind of first principle thing is you're like, okay, do you want to live in a society that allows peaceful protests or not?
Yeah.
Like, is it allowed or not?
And they're really just rocking out.
Yeah, they're like rocking whatever. They're like, it's a tailgate. It's become like a fucking party or whatever. But you're like, do you want a society where it's allowed or no? And it's like, if yes, then they're allowed to do that.
I don't know if anyone's necessarily saying they shouldn't be allowed to do it. I think they're just.
Yes, they are. Dude, go on Twitter. Holy shit, man. The amount of people.
Well, they're just trying to find a way to make it stop.
And then they go like, so like.
I don't think there's that many like honest left-wing people that are like, this should be illegal.
Yes, the amount of people who are like,
maybe right.
They're like, they don't have any permits.
Okay.
They were like, the fucking
like
city of Ottawa is like,
yeah.
this is costing like small businesses X amount of dollars. You're like, yeah, how much was it? Like, they're like, oh my God, think of like the small businesses, like think of the inconvenience to the people who live there. You're like, okay, well, when the fucking like Black Lives Matter, George Floyd protests were going on, think of like the amount of windows that got smashed and all the looting, and like nobody gave a shit then. Nobody was like, oh, think about these business owners. They were just like, this is important, and that supersedes that. So you're like, again, it's just a crazy hypocrisy to say like all this stuff is fine when it's for the thing that I'm fine with, and then
it's also
all this stuff should be like illegal the moment I just like don't agree with it, even though nothing criminal is going on.
There was pretty funny. You were sending me some videos too, where because Trudeau basically, there's nothing better that could happen right now than like 20 truckers go and like tear down a house or something, or
that's what they want.
That's what they're hoping. They're legitimately hoping for more than anything. There's nothing that Trudeau, like if anything, Trudeau's office probably would love to be like, yo, can we pay some truckers to go fucking like break some windows or something?
I mean, dude, they had
there's nothing, and then he could be like, white supremacy. And it's not even truckers. They're not even mostly white in Canada. Like Indian dudes and shit.
Tons of like non-white people. But like, so they had the thing, there was the main thing that everybody was like, this is a white supremacist like rally essentially.
Yeah.
There was one person who, this is like, obviously they had a upside down Canadian flag and it had a swastika on it, but like they were trying to like, those people were clearly trying to be like,
they're not there for this. Yeah.
No. They're not like,
no, I don't mean they're not there for this. I mean like they're obviously have a different agenda.
No, those people were trying to be like, Canada is becoming like a Nazi country.
Oh.
That's what I think, my opinion, that poorly done, because
you think that's what,
but it was on the Canadian flag. Okay, then there was one guy who I didn't know that. Your interpretation was that this wasn't even someone saying I'm a Nazi. This was someone saying Canada is becoming a Nazi. That, okay, then
that never works out that good when you try to make the point.
I was like poor execution, right? Then there was one guy who had a fucking Confederate flag with like a truck on it or whatever. I don't know if you saw that video.
Okay.
And so everybody was like filming him, and it was like a huge bunch of people. The only guy face fully covered, had like full balaclava on or whatever, like, and then they were like, get out of here, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, the truckers.
And so people are like,
well, they know it doesn't help. Everyone there knows, like, but again, these normal people aren't as stupid as you think. Like everyone there is like, hey, we know that there's not going to be favorable media coverage from everyone, right? Like it's going to be very hard for us to get like a fair shake for what we're trying to say right now. So let's not fucking, have.
But again, I think like, it's naive to think that there's no like agent provocateurs or whatever. Like the same people who are like, look at all those Nazis, were the same people who are like, don't touch those pallets of bricks at the fucking Black Lives Matter Matter thing, they're there to like set us up, right? And you go, well, where do those bricks come from? And if you ask them, they'll be like, oh, the government dropped it off. Like, so those people are like a type of, whatever mentality. And then there was one person who had a legit Nazi flag at the fucking rally.
Okay.
Which probably was a legit Nazi because I don't know. Again, it could have just been like a plant or whatever. I find it so hard to believe that like nobody, like people are walking by, they just like see a fucking Nazi flag and then they don't do anything or like get rid of them or whatever. But they use that as like, hey, all these people are Nazis, right? That's like, they go, this is a Nazi thing.
If you are a Nazi, by the way, and you're against mandates, you probably do more for your cause by staying home.
Sure. But also, and I mean, don't get me wrong, there are Nazis. Did you see the thing in Orlando on the weekend? Dude, in Orlando, there was like a legit like 20 like actual like they're like we are legit Nazis like dressed up as Hitler. We're at like an intersection in Orlando and they were straight up like people were driving by and they were like, you fucking kikes. And they were like, dude, they were like really, but because in America they have like the right to protest or whatever, like they have the right to assemble. And these people were like legit. I'm like, those are actual, like, cause everybody gets called a Nazi. I'm like, those ones are legit Nazis. But my point with this is they were like, okay, so Nazi flag flew and they're like, well, think about the people you're attracting. Therefore the entire thing is baseless. Like your entire, anti-mandate, blah, blah, blah. But like in, I think May in London or Kitchener or something, there was a fucking pro-Palestine rally and there was a guy with a fucking Nazi flag there.
Yeah.
Okay. He was like literally like draped on his car, a Nazi flag. So you're like, so then all people who are pro-Palestine, like you're just invalidated. And then the best is I looked at that post and all the comments on the post on Twitter were like because it was like some MP or something. And he's like, we have to denounce this. And then all these people are like, yeah, that's just like someone like trying to discredit our movement. Like they're trying to discredit our movement.
The same people saying it now.
And then I went and like clicked on these profiles and these people are just, like, look at all these Nazis at the fucking, so they're just like, when it's not beneficial to you, then, they're not or whatever, it's like the whole thing is ridiculous, but I mean, whatever. I don't think it's going to accomplish anything, to be honest, but
you don't think
they should be allowed to.
They basically said that they can be there for, 2 more years or something like that.
I saw that with the GoFundMe and then they're like,
that was their whole thing is that we can do this forever sort of thing. Right.
Yeah. There was,
it's your girl that doesn't have a job. That's like, I can fight all night.
There was, there's this dude, Stuart Parker. I'm not going to like go into it, but if you go to stuartparker.ca, this guy's like a card carrying socialist, like real, like hardcore socialist dude. And he wrote a really good article on his website that you can read about how like the way the media is like covering this is really bad for just like the future of protests. And he was like, yeah, I used to do all these like, peace protests in the 80s and stuff. And like, we had the same thing where it's like, you have these bad actors that kind of are either there because they think they can like, maybe convince people to come to like their group or whatever, or they, like you're always going to have some sort of overlap. Doesn't mean like, every person is a fucking Nazi and like all my friends are half of my friends are now white supremacists.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous.
There's the one thing we were talking about this weekend too is someone was talking about that they used their company used to donate money to both parties, right? Mm-hmm. And then they were saying now they kind of don't donate that much money to the left wing ones because all of their policies are just to hurt them or whatever.
Yeah.
So they kind of said it's sort of that changed a lot in the last 4 years. But he was saying there was that old thing that people used to say that there's no left or right way to pick up garbage, right? Like for certain things, and you go, it's funny because that you would say that would be true, but it almost isn't now. Where you go, well, there would be a left-wing way to pick up garbage. Is that you'd need the right skin color of the people doing it. You would need the right amount of girls picking up the garbage. Yeah. So it's like that idea.
You would shame people for not recycling. There'd be a real shame element.
Yeah. So it kind of switched where it used to be. Yeah, you go okay, but certain things there's no better way to. There's no partisan politics there. But then you go, it might have changed where there kind of is right now.
That is,
but so that's what when you look at the way that the politics is dealing with the mandates, you would think that would be the same thing with this, where it's there's not really a left wing or right wing way to like handle a pandemic, but they've turned it into there really is.
Yeah, I will say too, the worst probably not the worst, but. And kind of like a point I was making about how lazy people are with like debating this is they go, oh, you're all just racist, but like there are actual points that you can make that are, pro mandate if you want to make them. Like they do exist that you could say,
But they know this works. That's the thing. It's like they know
exactly.
That's
the path of least
That's the
resistance.
only playbook that he has.
Again, it's so easy. But yeah, you kind of mentioned it, but because I guess it's Black History Month, and then Trudeau did some like Black History post, which is fucking balls on him. But then they did, I think yesterday in the
You showed me this.
Yeah, I sent you the video where where they go, we just want to just make a formal like denouncing blackface. And
because the liberals kept doing all these. They kept saying we're going to do all these. We want to do a formal motion to denounce Islamophobia, right?
Yeah.
And then basically anyone that's kind of like, hey, we can't just every time we meet, it can't just be you doing all these motions for nothing. And they go, so you like Islamophobia?
Well, exactly.
Right. It was like a troll.
And then they take the names down of everybody who like didn't
want to do this, didn't want to spend this meeting doing that
or whatever, and then they say in the future hey, that person, we did this motion for Islamophobia and they voted against
they
it.
didn't want to do the motion
when they re-election. So they did one for just denouncing blackface and the use of blackface. The guy gets up and goes, I just like to denounce blackface and the use of blackface, and I just like to motion. And the guy goes, all right, yay or nay? And then all these people are like, no, like because they have to vote against it.
And then they go, racist. Oh, you're racist.
Yeah, you're racist. And there are people who are now on record as
liberals that they won't denounce blackface.
Yeah.
Because they basically, the Liberal Party, which is the Trudeau Party, would all have to come out and then essentially being like, we are on record that blackface is really bad. And it would just be an embarrassing thing for them to have to do because obviously the connotation.
Great move by the
it was like a troll.
It is totally a troll. Like you don't need a motion to say we're against blackface, obviously.
But it is. But that's why I'm saying it is. Sometimes it is. People are getting good at learning how to use the games the other way.
Oh, for sure. Like that would be useless if it wasn't on video.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure he finds the camera when he goes like, can we get a motion denouncing blackface?
Well, and this is how wrong they are too, because this is some of the things they said. They go, McKenney, who's non-binary, says that they don't feel safe venturing downtown right now, and it was like, no, that's not what's happening. It's a bunch of truckers partying.
Yeah, this is
this is one of the articles. Like this is the type of stuff the press was saying.
This is the one calling down this is calling the Ottawa protest peaceful, plays down non-violent dangers.
Yeah, exactly.
Like getting misgendered by some truck drivers.
But they said this. They go, there's no doubt that having a large element in this convoy, that it is part of a movement that is extreme and xenophobic. And we knew that coming into this weekend. And you go, I bet you're wrong about that. Like, I bet you'd be wrong about who's there. And I bet they'd be wrong about if you went there and so if you showed up and you were an Indian dude, there is no one that I know that's there would ever be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, like you're not welcome here. This is a white truckers
crazy.
Only.
And it's like whenever you lie about stuff, you just make the public support it more. And this is the problem with some of the other riots in before is you would see one thing and then the news would tell you it's not happening. And that just makes people mad when you see one thing, right? And you actually are told another because they're, telling you you're wrong. So if you go there and you're like, well, I know people that are there and they aren't that. And they go, they're actually the worst Nazi racists. And you go, well, I know 3 like Indian dudes that are there and they're having like a fun time. And
they haven't said there's one issue. Like there hasn't been one arrest. Do you see the thing where the city of Ottawa called the tow truck or whatever? They called the tow company to say, hey, we need you to tow all these trucks and stuff. And then the tow company basically responded. They were like, yeah, we all have COVID. Safety first. Can't help you. Because and another thing too is everybody there because the police are siding with the truckers for the most part,
right?
Because they're and then people are like, why aren't the police doing anything? Why are there like photos of the police helping them when they should be arresting them? And you're like, well, do you want all protesters arrested for protesting or not? Because then they'll do that when your thing's happening. Even though their thing is obviously like, well, no, not for us. We just want you to arrest them.
And then they said, this smacks of racism and white privilege. If you had a Muslim or brown person or indigenous person who organized such an event that would cause for the unseating of government, security forces would be down on them like a bag of hammers. And it was like, no, the prime minister would be giving a speech about how he supports it. Yeah. Like, what world are these people living in?
Insanity.
You go, yeah, if there was an indigenous protest outside of City Hall, Justin Trudeau would like stand out there and cry and say that how much he supports it.
The funny thing is there were all these indigenous people, and then people were linking because they're like, oh, this is a white supremacist thing, and then people are like, oh, look, there's this indigenous like drum circle and all this stuff, and then the people almost are like cope with it or whatever, they find the video and go, oh no, this video is actually from like 3 years ago. This is, and it's clearly from that day. Like they're like, yeah, we're anti-mandate. And they're like, no. It's,
you have to be taking crazy pills to sort of be taking the slop that they're saying to you right now.
I mean, again, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are pro-mandate. They don't think it's like time for things to reopen. They, it's they're. I don't know.
But it's what you said before. They're out of arguments because this is kind of the arguments they said. One of the arguments they're saying on their thing that you're saying there's some real arguments they have, but this is the ones that they came up with. They go, truckers already submit to a host of mandatory government safety regulations, from health checks to electronic monitoring of their movements. That's why some experts say it makes no sense for drivers to claim their freedoms are now at risk or whatever. And you go, first of all, this one thing is the vaccination part, but it's also about the other stuff. But even this one, it's this COVID theater thing too, where you go, okay, if you're a trucker, right?
Yeah.
You right now are going to be driving in your truck. You might stop in a hotel, you might get a lot lizard, but for the most part, you're not actually seeing anyone.
Yeah.
So there isn't really this argument where if you're actually saying this will make everyone more safe, it's like, no, you're just sort of like willy-nilly like making mandates or whatever. But if you actually think about it, the guy's in a truck. It's like the most job that shouldn't matter.
Yeah, it's like solo, kind of not. I'm sure you're in contact with some people. I mean, I would say personally, the main argument that can be made pro-mandate. I'm not pro-mandate, but if you want to at least make one that makes the most sense, is go look at like Canada, the deaths, and now I guess you could say like maybe they're miscounting or whatever. People say that. Well, they go, well, you can't trust the thing, but like Ontario and Pennsylvania are basically pretty similar size populations, right? Like you could probably say they're very similar in terms of like demographics, population wise. I think they're about the same. There's like 4 times as many deaths in Pennsylvania than Ontario. So Ontario, like, I guess it is working. You just have to make a decision. You go, how much is like our lives worth? I guess.
Well, I mean, there's a million other factors too, right?
Agreed, but I'm saying like the people who
what are the lives worth of the people that died the other way?
Or whatever. I'm not saying the
children
pro-mandate,
not going to school worth or whatever.
For sure.
So yeah, I'm not pro-mandate. You can make a cost benefit on that.
I'm just saying for people who are pro-mandate,
but then again, if you're going to be that, you have to take that position now on everything. I mean, it's like, yes, well, make driving illegal. You could also make, every flu season you could do this. You could do this. Why not just make everyone can't leave their house ever for the rest of time, and less people will die.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying the people who have these issues, you just make a point.
At least argue your point that you actually think that we think that everything should be more safe.
Yeah, we think that everything more safe, and like, look, we actually have less deaths per capita than somewhere that's the same size. So maybe this is a benefit of the mandate, not taking into account all the other
which those deaths aren't that crazy higher,
the second order effects or whatever. Yeah.
Well, they're making bad arguments. They go, he says it would be unthinkable to declare brake inspections, load limits, or driver physical exams optional. All of these measures infringe on freedoms, but they are all necessary to ensure the safety of drivers to the public. So their big argument is kind of like, you already have to have brakes. Why do you want to, why? Well, if you already have other mandates, like people need to be locked in their homes and you have to get, vaccinated or whatever. It's like, how is that any different than having your brakes working? And you go, because one, like, pretty most likely could kill someone, and the other one almost certainly won't make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, again, everybody took their vaccine. They took 3 vaccines.
And nothing had changed.
And they're still locked down. They're seeing everywhere else is reopening. If I was in Canada, I see.
Dude, if I was in Canada, I'd be peaking right now.
Yeah, I would fucking be going insane.
I'd be done with this.
I'd be wearing Guy Fawkes masks and fucking at Parliament and going nuts.
I would be I'd be flipping if I was in Canada right now.
Crazy.
And people that I know that are very reasonable.
Do you ever see Canadians here like that you've never met before, and you meet someone and you go, oh, you're like sometimes at a show or whatever, like so they'll say something and then someone's like, oh, Canadian, and like it's almost like I feel it's almost like meeting someone after you've like escaped like a war or something. You know, you see them on the other side and you go like, man, we made
that
it
Carol
out.
Zockoly.
Kind of exactly like Carol. You go, holy shit, we made it out. Like,
yeah, we made it out.
Like, how'd you get out? Like, what'd you do? It's like,
back of a truck.
Yeah, like back of a truck. I was under like a bag of potatoes or whatever for 4 days, and I got out though. And
my mom said she was going to go to the movies, and then she went and they had a sign that said "closed again." Fellas, thank you for watching that exclusive Boyscast clip and supporting the channel. If you want to support the podcast, we have a new episode every week at patreon.com/theboyscast. Only 5 bones, and there's a tons of episodes up there right now. So support the cast, support the boys.
Link right there.
Peace.